So yeah, I thought I'd do a video on genetics. I think that, like with this video, it can be quite a sensitive subject, and I'm going to go into probably a debate that can be a bit questionable, and I might just say my views on it, but some people are, the harsh reality is some people are just genetically fucked. And like it's well known, we're all made differently. We all have our genetics work differently to others. We've got our strengths and weaknesses. Some things work better than others, and some things are weaker than others. And I'd even say you just get those sort of people that are just genetically healthy, where they work in a way the world kind of functions in, how the world works, where they're mentally healthy and physically healthy at the same time. And I see that as being a privilege, because those sort of people usually the ones that are successful in life, if you know what I mean. And some people are just not so lucky, where some people are worse than others. Like, I'd include to a level myself in that, where I don't think I'm quite as genetically healthy as to kind of function the world the way the way the world functions, and where I've got Asperger's, and I'm not really physically fit, and I think that can probably, I'm no expert, no scientist or anything, but being mentally healthy and physically healthy can connect. Like, it functions in both ways, where, for example, like your guts are apparently connected to your brain, so the sort of things you eat, lifestyle, can affect your cognitive ability, like your mental ability. So I might have things, I can only blame myself because I'm not exactly like with the sort of things I consume and all that. But I don't know, sometimes I just think maybe I'm just not lucky with not just mental fitness, but physical fitness, where I think I get burnt out a lot. I think I get exhausted a lot. And yeah, I could be a lot worse off. Like, I think, in my opinion, there's a lot worse things than having Asperger's. And depends where you are on the autism spectrum, there's a lot worse things you could have, especially Asperger's. Well, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. But then you got those that are not very lucky, where, I don't know, they might be born with conditions where the genetics are just kind of fucked. Like, I might be a bit harsh, but things like, you know, the easy thing to say is probably like Down syndrome, but even that, there's probably worse things than Down syndrome, where people have, like, I don't know, the chromosomes, like, they might have, it's just fucked, like all that sort of stuff, where people are born horrifically disfigured or in serious pain. And that argument is, some people may think it's probably the kindest thing that depending on how bad the genetics are, but it's probably the kindest thing to, I don't know, put them out of their misery, put them down. Like, I may get into my views on that later on, but some, like, I've watched, partly what's influenced this video is a video series from tracking that I watched when I've questioned my genetic capabilities myself, where I can get a bit down about it sometimes, even though I think I could be a lot worse off. Where I did watch his video series on case for eugenics. Don't really know anything about eugenics, but from what I understand, I could be very wrong here, but it's where the kindest thing to do is, depending on how bad your genetics are, the kindest thing is to be put out of your misery. But I don't know if that's the thing, like, I don't think it's some sort of study by some academic or something. But I don't really know anything about that, to be honest. I don't consider myself to be that intelligent, even though I like to think I'm probably around average. But I think in this video, first I'm going to go into some personal stuff with, like, Asperger's. I think Asperger's has probably affected my life, where it's at its core, it's known as a social disability where you're socially clumsy in ways, not that you can't socialise, but it can get all complicated where you don't pick certain things up, which can, it seems very little to people with Asperger's or people like myself, and it can ruin a lot of things, like having a social life, being left out of groups. Like, I think that's the biggest curse personally of having Asperger's. And there's things, not just that, there's things on top of that where it affects just having everyday life skills, being clumsy in ways, like you can struggle finding employment. Like, you can probably do okay academically and all that, even though my thoughts on the education systems for another video, where I don't think that helps, to be honest. But you can just struggle with things. You might pick things up a bit more slower. It's different for everyone. Like, everyone's, like, you could have Asperger's or autism and be academically successful, or even successful in the workforce, pursuing, like, quite a successful life in the neurotypical normie world. Like, this probably is that out there. So it's, I don't know, it's very confusing. I think it's complicated. Like, everyone with Asperger's and autism is different. Doesn't mean you're just the same. Like, I've plenty of people with Asperger's who I think is quite different to me, I think. But when it comes to me, I think I've always seemed to, I notice I seem to get left out of groups a lot, comparing yourself to others. And stuff like that. And when it comes to, like, comparing yourself to others and genetics, people being genetically healthy and all that, there's one guy I can think of, like, who was in higher education, but I found that he seemed quiet. Like, he mumbled his words, like, he didn't really show a lot of facial expressions. Like, I don't really know whether he's on the autism spectrum or it's just not been diagnosed, but I guess that's kind of, you could say that's stereotypical traits, where I just thought he was quiet, mumbled his words, and didn't really show a lot of facial expressions. But I don't know, he just seemed a bit, to put it harshly, a bit boring. But he seemed to manage to fit that clique. Like he seems to like have mates and do things like get a girlfriend and get a job and everything. Even though getting a job and that's probably a different skill. But socially, he just seemed quiet. Like, and it's always confused me. Where I don't know, I've probably come across other people that are a bit like that, but I think that's the one that stands out. And I don't know, it gets frustrating because you get confused with that sort of stuff. Well, I think maybe I don't know, debate for another video, but I think when it comes to, depending on how bad you've got it genetically, like some people are just very unlucky in life, like I don't know, people like the Elephant Man, like, to put it bluntly, genetically fucked. And what's my opinions when it comes to be thinking that it's probably the kindest thing to put people down? Like, I think, because I come from if some people might not know, I come from a bit like a Christian background. I've got a Christian faith, and obviously things like that's seen as sinful. But I don't know, like, I don't have a definitive answer, because deep down I probably think, depending on how bad you've got it, like, if you're just gonna live a life living a hopeless existence and a life of pain, and I'd include that even Asperger's to a level where it's more of a mental disability, where you're going to live a life of being quite severely depressed and feeling like you've got a hopeless existence, and you get left out of groups. And I think there's a better way you could probably help people like that, but I'm probably talking a bit like people who are born severely disfigured, where they're going to live a life of pain and not going to be able to get a job, live a normal life, like not a life at all, or being morbidly obese. Like stuff like that, where it's probably the kindest thing that, I don't know, to get taken out of the misery. Like, I'm not really physically fit. Like, I've been a little bit overweight most of my life, and I probably get a bit more. I seem to get more tired more than a lot of normal people, but I guess I'm lucky that I'm not like fucking morbidly obese where I can't get out of bed. Like, if that ever, God fucking forbid, that ever fucking becomes a reality, that deep down I'd probably rather be taken out of my fucking misery, to be honest. You know what I mean? But I don't know, like, maybe deep down that's the kindest thing, but I guess that's, I don't know, a different debate. I don't know. But yeah, that's just some of my views on that. Like, I think when it comes to Asperger's, like, I think there could be better support, especially when it comes to me as well, where I think I could probably be supported better, in all honesty. But I think like even with Asperger's, you do live a life of pain, like being depressed, get left out of groups. You can't really do things that normal people seem to pick up, like getting a girlfriend and getting a job, even though a job's my views on the job market again is probably for another video. That even that's fucked. Like the world's just fucked, especially Britain. And coming from myself, like I've always been confused to why I've had a life of like kind of like being socially isolated. Like it's always kind of confused me. I've never really understood it, if you know what I mean. But yeah, so like I said, I don't really know what eugenics is. It's kind of new to me. But I think one thing I can agree on is that, well, like maybe I can agree on is I think some people it's probably better off that they just don't breed, if you know what I mean. Where like the genetics are too fucked that the child just be no use to society. Like maybe I can agree on that. But like looking up on it a little bit, like I think it mentions like eugenics influenced the Holocaust, and it's something that the Nazis like used and like experimenting on disabled kids, like people who are genetically fucked. Like, and obviously, I don't agree with that. It's pure fucking evil. But I think the best argument for it's probably the kindest way to put people to death is criminals, people that are just no good to society. Like, I think studies have shown that being evil is genetic, or it can be genetic. Like, some people by nature are just bad, like, they're bound to commit evil acts, do bad things. So, like, you got your people like Axel Ruda Kabudu, like, obviously I know it's not his name, but fuck that guy. Like, it's probably a good argument that it'd be better off that he gets the bop at the back of the head. Probably a bit late, but the same to people like Jimmy Savile, like, in my eyes, I see him as a sick dog, like, worse than that even. Well, like, it's probably best that he got the bop at the back of the head. And just scumbags. I'm not talking about petty little criminals like teenagers wearing balaclavas. That's in big when really they probably come from a nice middle class family. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about pure evil. But that's probably the closest that I can maybe agree to stuff like that. And it might be to a level some people are probably better off not breeding, but when it comes, like, I'm a Christian, it's probably a debate for another video. Like, it's a complicated subject, and I'm not an anti-nihilist. I don't do any of that shit, to be honest. But it leans into all that sort of stuff as well. And yeah, it's just forgot what I was going to say. I think like eugenics is probably something I have to look up a bit more, because in all honesty, it's completely new to me. But yeah, I think that's all I've got to say in this video. Maybe catch you in another video. Goodbye.